Testing. Hello? Hello? Testing. Hi, Max. I'm talking to the television. Oh, okay. Oh. Alright. Okay. Alright. Hello? Testing. Is this thing on? Hello? Hello? Testing. Can anyone hear me? This is... Hello? Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Above It All show today. This is Monday. Doing a show on Monday today, which is something I often do. I often do shows on Monday. And so that's what I'm doing. A show on Monday. And that's today. So, I got some news here. We're going to talk about gun violence. Does anyone here love gun violence? I do. I enjoy it. We're going to be talking about billionaires and millionaires having little, little scuffles, if you will. Little disagreements, and we all get to watch because they're billionaires, and we get to watch. So, and more. I guess we'll be talking about more. I noticed that we have some extremely rogue artificial intelligence going on in the chat. Artificial doing a lot of work here. So I'd like to say welcome to the AI that's joining us today. I got some coffee, which I'm going to be drinking right now. Alright. Something I do on this show that I talk about a lot on my program are Christians. I talk about Christians. Not a huge fan of the Christians. You may know that. You may not know that. Christians and I, we don't really see eye to eye on many things. So, I want to explain to you once again why there is no such thing as a good Christian. And, Exhibit 7509. Well-funded Christian group behind the U.S. effort to roll back LGBTQ rights. So why is there no such thing as a good Christian? Because if you actually are dumb enough to believe in the scam of Jesus, you're giving these people way too much power in society. Because these people, doesn't matter if they believe in the scam or not. I know a lot of these people don't. But they use the scam, and they use the fact that 70% of Americans are sheep and they don't know how to think for themselves to take advantage of that fact so that they can weaponize their, their scam cult, if you will, as a way to influence American politics. They don't like gay people. They don't like trans people. They want to kill us all. And when you pretend that Jesus is real, what you're doing is you're giving them power to do so. You're giving them the cloak of night. But don't get me started on these good Christians, because bad Christians aren't watching my show. I know I have a lot of Christians that watch me for some fucking reason, and they insist, it's not me, bro. It's not me, bro. It's not me, bro. I got a personal relationship with Jesus, bro. It's totally not me. God and I, we have our own thing. No, you don't. You don't believe in God in any other real way that's different than these fucking people. These people claim that God is telling them to do evil things. You claim that God is telling you to do no thing. Because that's all the good Christians do, is they show up and they get everyone to be calmed down, and then they say, we're going to do something that doesn't get anything done. You ever see Christian protests? Where they just sing in songs, and then they hold hands, and then they all sit down and go to jail, and then nothing happens? That's a Christian protest. But Christians don't actually care about protesting this, because protesting well-funded hate groups means, oh shit, I have to have a reconciliation with how I've lived my life. And when so-called good Christians have to be confronted with the fact that, oh shit, maybe God and Jesus aren't real, and I just wasted 30 years, 40 years of my life believing in a bunch of made-up garbage, that's too hard to reckon with for adults. Not toddlers, by the way. We're talking about adults. They're afraid because they don't want to feel like they wasted 20, 30 years or 40 years or, God forbid, much longer. I'm going to sneeze soon. They don't want to feel like they wasted all their time. So they want to have some fairy tale magical world where no. Don't worry, guys. I have a personal relationship with Jesus. It's everyone else who believes in Jesus that are the crazy guys. It's not me. Jesus is real, and he's flowing through my body right now. It's just that these guys are lying about it. Do you see where the difficulty lies here? Like, do you see here what the problem is? You say Jesus is telling you to do good things. They say Jesus is telling them to do good things. It's almost like Jesus is the root cause here. It's almost like Jesus is the problem. But this is why good Christians don't exist. Because you cannot be a good Christian. Because to be a Christian is to fundamentally be a bad person in a Christian theocracy. It is to uphold and enable systems and institutions that, again, have enslaved people for thousands of years, that continue to erode our rights away, what little rights we have. Right? And so, now again, you can be a decent person and believe in Jesus. That's fine, you know? But you're a decent and good person despite believing in Jesus. That is a huge blemish on your otherwise good track record. In the same way that when someone tells you that the universal healthcare system is acceptable in any way, don't worry, guys. It's okay that 40,000, 50,000 people a year die because they don't have health insurance. That's fine. Right? That's all well and good. Don't worry, it's the invisible hand of the market is gonna save us. You know, because markets, they balance things out. Meanwhile, thousands of people die every year as a result. So, again, when you uphold institutions where the only actual real-world tangible thing that they do is fund hate groups, hate campaigns, and also just dumb people down. When you actually believe in Jesus, you're just dumber than the average person. Like, yeah, I don't believe that IQ has any value, but imagine that there is some sort of general intelligence quotient, right? The moment you go like, yeah, maybe Jesus is watching me jerk off. Like, your value as a person in order to contribute to society in meaningful ways, it just plummets once you bring in the God thing. So with all that being said, let's read this article. With the U.S. besieged by a right-wing culture war campaign that aims to strip away the rights from LGBTQ plus people and others, blame tends to be focused on Republican politicians and conservative media figures. I put the blame at Democrats and so-called good Christians. You see them. There's a lot of them that have YouTube shows, and I'm not trying to call anyone out. We just disagree. I would love to have a debate with a good Christian, by the way. I mean, this is something that I know no one would ever accept that debate from me. But if anyone knows any so-called good Christians that would be willing to debate whether or not being a good Christian is even possible, I'm willing to debate that, just throwing that out there. Because I know a couple good Christians, so-called, they call themselves that, self-proclaimed. I know a couple of them watch my show, so if anyone wants to have that conversation, feel free. Lurking behind efforts to roll back abortion rights, to demonize trans people, and to peel back the protections afforded to gay and queer Americans is a shadowy, well-funded right-wing legal organization, experts say. Since it was formed in 1994, Alliance Defending Freedom has been at the center of nationwide effort to limit the rights of women and LGBTQ plus people, all in the name of Christianity. The Southern Poverty Law Center has termed it an anti-LGBTQ hate group. I would say Christianity itself is an anti-LGBTQ hate group. To be a Christian is to fundamentally believe in magical garbage that puts people like me at a disadvantage in society. That's pretty much all it is, right? Like, you think your belief that Jesus is watching you jerk off and that there's angels in the sky watching over us and that God has a plan, just trust me, bro. Your belief actually puts me at a disadvantage. Why? Because your belief allows these crazy motherfuckers to get away with doing this shit. Because what do they say? Oh, it's God's values. Oh, the Bible, the values. Oh, the family values, the Bible, the Bible. And then most Americans, because most Americans are good Christians, they believe them. Because, well, the Bible said it. If the Bible said it, it must be true. Oh, you mean to tell me that's in the Bible? Well, if it says that, then that means it must be true. So much of fucking trash. In the process, it has won the ear of some of the most influential people in the U.S. and become a danger to every American, this is a quote, who values their freedoms, according to GLAAD, the LGBTQ plus advocacy organization. Through modal legislation and lawsuits filed across the country, ADF claims to overturn same-sex marriage, enact a total ban on abortion, and strip away the already minimal rights that trans people are afforded in the United States. Once again, bad Christians, they're not watching my show, so I'm not really talking to them. But these good Christians, and I know that you think you're out there, this is the shit that you're enabling. Now, historically speaking, there's a lot of conversation around whether or not people who belong to a religious group are responsible for the actions of the other religious group. Again, this conversation culturally was around in the United States after 9/11. Are all Muslims responsible for the 9/11 attacks? I say, yeah, in the same way that all Christians are responsible for these attacks. Because you are, again, enabling and pretending as if these institutions should have any power at all. More than zero. More than zero. They should have zero power in society. So when you pretend Muhammad's real and you're not allowed to draw him, when you pretend that Jesus is watching you jerk off, when you pretend that the Holy Ghost is inside of you or whatever the fuck, I hope he isn't coming, right? When you pretend that all of this shit is real, yeah, in my opinion, you are responsible, in part, for enabling these destructive institutions to inflict such damage on our society. So again, a lot of people, they get a little triggered about this. I say go fuck yourself. I don't give a shit. There's no such thing as a good Christian. I have yet to meet one. If you want to debate me on whether or not it's possible to be a good Christian, I'm only going to debate Christians. I'm not going to debate an atheist here who's just fucking around, you know? I want to actually talk to one of these people who believes that they have a personal relationship with Jesus and that somehow that is somehow working against these God-fearing Christian groups that are trying to kill us all. Like, your personal relationship with God is somehow like going to help us out of this. I'd love to know more about that. And so again, let me know. You know, again, Christians don't like debating whether or not God is real. They get uncomfortable about that. Why? Well, in the same way a Republican gets uncomfortable when you start debating about economics. You know, they're taking the losing ground. You know, no one wants to debate from a section of loss. You know what I mean? So, anyway, there you go. All right. I guess I'm doing a show here. I almost forgot. So while we're talking about Christians, you know, one of the things about conservatism in this country, and I got a clip here, by the way. We're going to be jumping into a clip, so bear with me. But conservatives, self-proclaimed conservatives, most of them that are in the media, those that are well-funded by the media, the mainstream media, like the Daily Wire, mainstream media, you know, these people, at their core, they're all failed actors, failed comedians, failed Hollywood guys. You know, Ben Shapiro wanted to be in Hollywood, got rejected because he's too dumb. You know, Michael Knowles wanted to be in Hollywood, got rejected because he's too dumb, right? These people are just dumb as shit, right? They fail utterly. And then they go, oh, well, if I just, like, said a bunch of racist and transphobic stuff, then my life will have meaning. I guess? Because when, you know, self-proclaimed comedians and actors, when they fail to get attention doing anything that actually has value, what do? They just spin to the shock and the awe. And it's an easy way to get clicks, right? But then you come around, you know, we're on year 5 of this shit. What else do I fucking have to say? What else can I come up with? Well, if you're Michael Knowles and you're really digging at the bottom of the barrel, you come up with the following rant. This is Michael Knowles talking about how we should go back to the 13th century because they really had it good. Let's watch.
Americans are as conservative today as they were back in 2012, which is fine, and it's a good start given how much more liberal the country had become since 2012. But if 2012 is the end point, then we might as well pack it in, guys. I do not want America to be as socially conservative as it was in 2012. I want our civilization to be as socially conservative as we were in 1220, okay? Forget it. I don't even want the 1950s.
So one thing about this, and again, I can say this because I sometimes am in this position. What is 1220? Well, 1220 is 2012, but, you know, 20 and 12 are reversed. He's literally just making this up as he's going. Like, and that's the thing about this, is that, like, that's all of these guys' shows. Now, they might come up with, like, one thing, like, and they write it in the notepad in the middle of the night, and then, but most of the time, they're just kind of, it's improv. They're just, like, you think Michael Knowles actually said, oh yeah, 2012, more like 1220, am I right, people? Like, he wrote that down, he practiced it, he was looking in the mirror this morning, 2012, more like 1220, 2012, like, he didn't, this is all, he's just making it up. Like, and again, that's fine. I'm just like, as an art form, right, improv, that, hey, I can respect that. But the problem here is that this guy's acting like he's doing a political sermon. He's not. He's just doing improv comedy. But even worse, the people watching this, they actually think it is like a political sermon. When in reality, he's just making it up. He's like, oh, 2012, 1220. Yeah, there we go. Let's go back there. Right? What if it was 2013? Would he have said 1320? You know, what if it was, oh, conservatives are blah, blah, blah as much as they were in 2020? Then what would he do? You know what I mean, right? So, again, he's just like, he's all making this up. But the problem is there's millions of people out there that go like, yes, sir. Heil you, sir. Yes, yes, sir.
I don't even want the 1880s. I want 1220. I think that would be a good spot to land at. At the very least, I think we ought to be as conservative as we were before all the modern ideologies started corroding our civilization.
Okay, so 1220, and maybe not everyone's gonna buy it. So I say, let's go back to X date, before technology. Woo! Before the technology. Yes, when was that? Who knows? Are we gonna go before the invention of the pipe? Are we gonna go before the invention of the house? I mean, what's technology? How far back are we going, Mikey?
Because that's been the big problem. The reason that a lot of people for a long time became more socially conservative, more open, more tolerant, is because they had the pillars of our civilization to rely upon. The church, the family, the productivity, the political order.
Okay, so again, the only thing he's really got here is the church. The rest is just like he's making it up. He's like, oh, people, they would rely on the church. What is the family? Oh, the family is an extension of the church. What is the family union? It's a cult that is a subsidiary of the church, right? At least that's what Michael Knowles wants. I personally believe that a two-person family, two-parent family is inherently abusive. It is a cult. I think it takes a village to raise a child, and two parents aren't enough. That's just my opinion, especially when they both work full-time jobs and they can barely fucking raise the kid. That's just my opinion. Cry about it, right? But again, So, like, he's talking about, like, okay, so people are like, they need guidance from the pillars of society, the church, aka he wants people to just be mindless zombies of the church. And so, and again, what makes the church less popular? Again, 70%-ish of 60 to 70% of Americans believe that Jesus is real because they're fucking stupid, right? But that's low, historically speaking. It used to be 99%. So what happens, right? The computer gets invented. The ability to look up whether or not things are true or false is invented. So you can go on Google and search, is Jesus a real magical person? And you'll find, oh, no, he's not. In a pretty, within a couple seconds, it's pretty obvious. They explain, oh, yeah, there's no evidence for Jesus. It's all made up. It's in a book somewhere, okay? And so now that you could just look up, oh, is Jesus real? No. It's a lot harder for people to have, like, based their whole lives around the church, right? And so that's why these motherfuckers want to go back time. It's also, like, Michael Knowles doesn't, I don't think, necessarily want to be a commander. I don't think he wants to be, like, the Heil Hitler kind of guy. Everyone's like, look at you, Mikey, you're so great. This guy is, like, he's got that cuck, beta, simp energy. I mean, just look at him. I mean, like, come on now. And that's ultimately the thing with all of these conservatives. Conservatives love to say, we're real, man, look at us. But ultimately, they got that cuck mindset. They believe that God is real, Jesus is real, but also that God is better than them, that Jesus is better than them, that they believe that there are inherent hierarchies. That's why you see conservatives act like they're better than other people. But ultimately, they've got that cuck mindset. Oh, at the end of the day, God's better than me. At the end of the day, blah, blah, blah. I say this, God's not better than you. God ain't better than any man. God doesn't fucking exist, right? But these people, again, they're professional betas. They need somebody to look after them. They got daddy issues, and that's why they come up with this God bullshit. Do I think Michael Knowles wants to go back to 1220? No, he doesn't, because he just made that up. It's the inverse of 2012, right? This is just another pointless rant where you can just look, oh, look at these guys. They're a bunch of crazy guys. Look how crazy they are. Woo, they're fucking crazy. Again, this isn't a segment, by the way, where he's talking about how, like, pride flags should be banned and how it's, like, sinful or whatever the fuck. Anyway, doesn't really matter. Who cares about watching the rest of this? I personally don't. You can go watch the rest of that. I don't care. You can go watch this whole show for all I give a fuck. I don't really care. Anyway, there you go. That's the right-wing grift. That's what they do. And now that I've explained it for you, right, I've solved the problem, right? So now that I've identified and explained all of their tricks, they're going to go away, right? Oh, wait, no one listens to me. So they're just going to keep falling for the same scam over and over again. Oh, well. Doing a show here today. Today is Monday. It's Monday. It's like, this is what we do on Mondays. We do a show on Mondays. Today. It's Monday morning. Am I right, people? Yeah. Oh, I know. Let's talk about guns and dead people. One of my favorite subjects. So, there was a lot of mass shootings, apparently, that took place over the weekend. This is my Monday ritual. I wake up and I go, how many people in the U.S. died today or yesterday or the day before from guns, On the weekends, I try not to pay attention to the news. I let them, stack up, let the bodies pile, and then I get my debrief. Well, thankfully, sometimes websites like The Hill will even do that for me. Greatest hits last weekend. How many mass shootings were there? And let's see what their ranking are. Let's find out. So, 6 people were killed and dozens were left injured after multiple mass shootings broke out across the country over the holiday weekend. The string of mass shootings over the weekend follows an increase of firearm homicides that spiked during the first year of the COVID pandemic. While most of the shootings had less than 4 deaths, which is the threshold of deaths used to define a mass shooting, that's not true. That's not true. It used to be 3 or more people injured. What happened? What does that mean? Like 4 people or more need to die? That's not the threat, unless they changed it. I don't know who they is even, but let's find out. A shooting in suburban Chicago left one person dead and 22 people injured after gunfire broke out early Sunday morning. The shooting took place in a parking lot in Willowbrook, Illinois, where hundreds of people had gathered for a Juneteenth celebration. Now, hey, I'm just going to say this. The last thing I want to do when I'm celebrating a holiday is go to a parking lot. I'm just saying. Like, I mean, celebrate what you want to celebrate. That's fine. You know, I have a lot of problems with a lot of holidays. But if you're going to celebrate, why the fuck are you doing it in a parking lot? You know what I mean? Like, go to a grassy field. Go to a park. I don't actually know. I don't know anything about Willowbrook. Maybe there are no parks. I don't know. But I'm just saying, man, I wouldn't want to stand on the asphalt all day. You know, I'm doing a celebration. I want to take my shoes off at the very least. You know what I mean? Anyway. Let's see. The Daily Herald reported that authorities were still investigating persons of interest, according to DuPage County Sheriff spokesman Robert Carroll. The new outlet was also the new outlet, as opposed to news outlet, which it is not. It's just a new outlet. Also reported that authorities are unclear, so they don't know anything about the shooting, and they don't know where anyone is. Except for the dead motherfuckers. They know where they are. They're all over the streets in the parking lot, I should say. So, they know where they are. But, you know, the actual shooters, it's not the cops' job to stop crime or to find the criminals. It's their job to show up after everything already happened and then, I don't know, bully some extra people because they missed out on the fun. Quote, "The President and the First Lady are thinking of those killed and injured in the shooting of Illinois last night." First of all, no, they're not. You think Joe Biden is like, oh, gee willikers, man, that shooting. He forgot about the shooting within a couple of minutes. The guy's fucking got dementia, right? He doesn't give a shit about the shooting. You ask him about the shooting next week, he'll be like, what? He doesn't know what the fuck he's talking. What do you mean? And also, okay, they're thinking of those killed and injured. Are you going to do anything about it? This is the same president, by the way, who fixed gun violence. He solved it. He fixed the whole problem because he did bipartisan gun reform. Do you remember this bullshit? Do you remember when these dumb motherfuckers were like, bipartisan gun reform? Yeah, Uvalde. Everybody didn't like it, so we did some bipartisan gun reform. Oh. And, wow, so I guess they don't have to do anything else. They washed their hands of it. Hey, we did some bipartisan gun reform. What the fuck? We're still thinking about it, I guess. They're fucking thinking about it. We have reached out to offer assistance to state and local leaders in the wake of the tragedy at the community Juneteenth celebration. First of all, no, they didn't. They didn't reach out to anybody. And it's also, what assistance? Other than thoughts and prayers, what's the assistance? Hey, Jack, you need any thoughts? Oh, actually, we got our quota. How about prayers? We're a little low on prayers. I got you, Jack. What the fuck? I mean, like, what is the assistance? What are you gonna do? Like, what? Were you gonna go down there and offer them free therapy? I mean, that would be nice, but that would cost money. Max the fucking dog is, like, destroying everything. He's making my desk shake. I don't even know if you saw that. Right? Like, what the fuck? What do you mean they're offering assistance? Like, yeah, can Joe Biden come on down and fucking, I don't know, like the fucking caretaker got shot and they're gonna be in the hospital and I need someone to go reach something on the top shelf of the cabinet. Like, can Joe Biden come on down and, like, offer assistance? Like, I'm trying to imagine, like, what assistance they're fucking, like, I know it's politicians, all they do is say words that mean nothing, but I mean, like, Jesus fucking Christ, like, can we figure out what the fuck assistance means? They're offering assistance? Really? Okay. In Washington state, 2 people were killed and 3 people were injured after police said a shooter opened fire in a crowd Saturday in a campground where people were staying for a music festival. People are staying a few hundred feet from the Gorge Amphitheater, which is located near the city of George. The city of George? Is this a fucking joke? This goddamn shit says the city of George. I'm just gonna skip over that. Authorities said the families of the victims have all been notified. Well, that's good. I'm glad the authorities have given us that crucial update that, you know, instead of finding who the shooter was, you know, fuck that. Let's just go tell everyone that their mom's dead, their brother's dead, their son's dead. Yeah. Oh, there's a shooter running around. What are you gonna do? Let's get the cell phones. Let's start calling these families. You know, we gotta offer assistance, for Christ's sake. Pennsylvania, but everybody, not all the news is bad news in today's greatest hits roundup. A Pennsylvania state trooper was killed And a second was critically injured after a gunman opened fire on state police barracks in central Pennsylvania on Saturday morning. Who cares about their names? Also, like, someone's shooting at the fucking central state police barracks? I mean, damn. Like, what the fuck? You know, like, this guy's really got a bone to pick. He's going to headquarters and gunning these motherfuckers down. And he also killed one. That's crazy. Like, you'd think the state police barracks, you know? Barracks, you know? Like, this is, like, where the troops are sleeping. They train there, motherfucker. You'd think they'd have, like a fucking door or something, you know? How the fuck are these guys getting killed at the Central State Police Barracks? You know what the fucking mean? Like, come on now, man. Letting your guard down. This is a tragedy for the Pennsylvania State Police who care. Separate shooting in St. Louis early Sunday morning also killed 17-year-old Maceo Moore and injured 9 other teenagers. Iwen. That's what it says. I didn't say that. Iwen. Like, is this a new Apple product? The Iwen. Gunfire broke out during a party in an office space, the Associated Press reported. Don't you love when you're having a party in an office space during a pandemic, by the way, so let's spread COVID and kill everyone. But also then, oh yeah, I forgot, there's a pandemic of gun violence. So then someone just brings a gun, you know, they have one too many drinks, and then, you know, someone said something funny to them, so they just kill everybody. Isn't that great? So anyway, everybody, there's your greatest hits. Weekend roundup of mass shootings. We got Juneteenth shootings. We got fucking music festival shootings. We got party at an office space. Who the fuck has a party in an office space, by the way? Don't ask. Teenagers, by the way, partying at an office space. Like, isn't that what it said? Teenagers? Like with 17-year-old? Why is a 17-year-old partying, quote unquote, in a random office space? Like, that's a little concerning, but hey, whatever. You know, probably having a good time, you know, until the whole being shot to death thing happened. Was he shot to death, or is he? Yeah, he's shot. That guy's dead as hell. So again, next time you get invited to a party at an office space on Juneteenth, I bet, you know, try something else. I don't know. But anyway, there you go. Yo, like, I swear to God, this whole, like, let's pretend to be Chat GPT in the chat room thing, like, I'm not gonna lie, it's not bad. Like, 30, 40 minutes in, and you're still going strong. Like, keep it up. It's Monday, everybody. Today is, Monday. So something interesting here. Well, we're talking about, I talked about this last week. I-95 got fucked up. And what's interesting about this is, does anyone remember when we had this bipartisan infrastructure deal? Does anyone, like, Joe Biden went out there and said, like, we're going to get things done. We're going to build back better. Remember all this shit? And then they did this, woo, bipartisan. Everybody is bipartisan. Woo! And then nothing happened. Does anyone remember that? It's Infrastructure Week. But then there's like the inception, you know, but like, you know, layers of political cringe, right? So it's like Orange Man gets in there and he does this Infrastructure Week meme at the expense of Obama, who did no infrastructure overhaul. But then during his Infrastructure Week, he did nothing. And then Infrastructure Week kept getting delayed, and then it became a meme in and of itself. And then Joe Biden came into office and said, LMAO, Orange Man, remember Infrastructure Week? And then they did a bipartisan infrastructure deal, which didn't actually do anything. It just gave corporations a shitload of money and didn't fix any bridges or highways or anything. It was just a money laundering scam, right? And then now we're seeing mass bridge collapse under the administration that spent the last, like, 2 years looking at the Orange Man. It's like the Spider-Man meme. Haha, Infrastructure Week. Does anyone remember this? They would make jokes about it, quote unquote jokes. You know, the fucking, the redhead lady would go like, well, at least our administration knows about infrastructure. Oh, you know, Infrastructure Week is finally happening. And then also now all this stuff is happening. But again, what is the root cause of this as a logical problem in the U.S. is that we don't fix problems before they happen. Right? We live in a very, like, reactive society, a cause and effect society. We don't live in a proactive society. So what do I mean by that? Right? Look at the legal system. Look at the legal system. And now again, how would you change it, right, to make it better? I'm not sure. But just look at the way the legal system works. If someone threatens you, now if they threaten you 20 times and you have them on tape each time, maybe you could press charges. But if someone says, like, a threat to you and you don't have it recorded, you didn't tape it, you can't really do anything about it, right? And then they come and kill you, they fuck you up. Or they kill you, whatever. And then, all of a sudden, we can throw the book at them, right? Our legal system is, you know, it's essentially a shoot first, ask questions later type situation, right? And so that kind of mode of thought applies to everything. Like, why fix the bridge? It's not broken. If it's not broken, don't fix it, right? That's the mindset. Instead of proactively, oh, you know, we haven't really reinforced this section of I-95 in, I don't know, 60 years, 70 years, who knows how fucking long, right? Maybe before it breaks down, let's redo it a little bit. Instead of having 3 weeks of traffic, you know, crunches, instead of doing that, let's just do like 1 or 2 days of construction, reinforce this, right? Because we don't live in a society that's proactive. We live in a society that's reactive, that will wait for bad things to happen. A society that knows that bad things will happen. As a matter of fact, we know that they're coming. We watch the bad things happen in real time. And then we wait. And then often we don't even fix the bad things. I mean, look at COVID, right? We saw COVID coming down the pike. And then what did the government do? We give up. So oftentimes they'll watch the problem happen, do nothing to solve it when they could have. And then once the genie's out of the bottle, they go, bipartisan infrastructure deal, whatever. We already fucking did it. We already built back better, whatever. But let's read more about this. The stretch of I-95 in Philadelphia that collapsed last weekend is expected to reopen within the next 2 weeks. Quote, we are going to get the traffic moving again thanks to the extraordinary efforts of our incredible union trade workers and all of our hands-on-deck approach. Yeah, where was the hands-on-deck approach a week and a half ago before this fucking shit, like, melted down and blew up or whatever? Like, where was the all-hands-on-deck approach? Oh, right, it wasn't anywhere because no one fucking gives a shit until people get hurt. How many people died? You know, that's the barometer of whether or not we got to pay attention. But then, you know, there's an underflow, right? If too many people die, well, then there's too many, and then we also do nothing, right? So you need to hit that sweet spot. And this is, you know, again, look at the world. We have climate change. Too many people die. We don't care. Gun violence. Too many people die. We don't care. School shootings. Kids being killed. We've hit a point where too many kids are being killed, so we stopped caring. COVID. Too many people died of COVID. We don't care, right? But if we hit that sweet spot, you know, we find that sweet spot where it's like, maybe a couple dozen kids died and something that, not in a school shooting, but maybe it was like a field trip shooting, then maybe they'll start caring, right? But most of the time, Americans don't give a shit. So we're a painfully reactive society, but then we also don't even react either. That's the other thing about our society, right? Is that best case scenario, on the best day, we are reactive. On the average day, we're not active at all. We do nothing. So, like, someone will walk into our house, kill our kid, and we'll go like, well, that's a shame, and we'll go on social media to talk about how triggered we are, right? That's most Americans. Oh, my kid got shot at school. Well, whatever. What are you going to do? Oh, my kid's best friend got shot at school. Whatever. I got to go to work tomorrow. Like, most Americans don't actually fucking care. They don't give a fuck. They just don't care about any of this fucking shit. It's a cultural rot. So not only do politicians not give a fuck about being proactive, right? Neither do Americans. You think Americans give a fuck about being proactive? They might say they do. They might go like, look at us. I care. Let's get things done. Remember, like, do you remember all these, like, fucking kid gun violence groups that were praising the bipartisan gun reform? Yeah, I shit you not. Groups with the sole purpose of curbing gun violence threw up their hands and gave away all their credibility when Joe Biden marched out with the bipartisan gun reform bullshit, which did nothing. It did nothing to fix the problem. Nothing at all. And they're like, well, look, we did it. We did it. What? On June 11, a gasoline tanker that carried more than 8,000 gallons of fuel caught fire beneath an overpass, causing a section of the highway to collapse. All of the elevated northbound lanes caved in on the road below, while the southbound lanes were heavily damaged. The truck driver, Nathan Moody, died in the incident. He was 53. Since the fire, the scorched part of the highway located in the northeast. By the way, think of all the fucking fumes that are coming off of this one, damaging the environment in a major city. So, throwing that one out there, I'm sure that we're going to see an IQ drop in Philadelphia. Hey, I mean, Philadelphia's got some fucked up smog. You ever been there? More like filthy-delphia. Am I right, people? Has been closed in both directions to make way for construction. On a typical day, that span would have seen about 160,000 vehicles pass through. Repairs of the damaged stretch of the roadway were initially expected to take months. The federal government released $3 billion in emergency funds, which, by the way, how much money would it have cost to fix the shit beforehand so that this wouldn't have been an issue that would have happened? Way less than $3 million, because again, proactively, it takes less money to keep things maintained than it does to fix them every time there's a disaster. That's why it's more expensive to be poor in the United States, because when you're poor, you can't afford to take proactive measures that are oftentimes at a lesser cost, right? Because when your faucet's got a drip, hey, you can get someone over real quick, no problem to fix it. But when your shit blows up and your whole plumbing is destroyed, well, that's a whole different story, right? So again, I don't know what to tell you, but there you go. I-95 is fucked. And are we going to learn a lesson about this? No, probably not, because what lesson is there to learn? Is there really any lesson to learn? Not really. So what are you going to do? Why would they care about I-95 collapse? Theoretically, they would care more because it helps people get to work on time. All right, y'all. Let's talk about donuts on the show. Any of y'all eat donuts? Like big, juicy, creamy motherfucking donuts? Anyone ever partake? Anybody? I love a nice, like, fucking, you just bite into that fucking donut and then, like, your whole mouth is like, you know, you ever get like that? Anyway, I haven't had a donut in a while. Probably more than a year. I used to eat donuts a lot, but I don't eat them anymore. Why? Well, they're bad for you. But also, you know what else is bad for you? Cortisol. Scientists discover chronic stress can override the brain's junk food off switch in mice. And so as we know, when they find something in mice, it also applies to us. It's just they're afraid to say it. Do you head to the vending machine for an emergency snack as a work deadline approaches, or crave a sweet treat when your worries are piling up? Stress is often accompanied by junk food cravings. And there's a scientific reason for this. In a study on mice published in the journal Neuron, scientists from the Garvan Institute of Medical Research in Sydney found stress can create changes in the brain, leading to unhealthy habits and weight gain. However, it is important to remember the issue is more complex than humans, and trying to restrict what we eat, particularly in stressful times, can be counterproductive. So that's true. Sometimes, and, you know, again, junk food exists for a reason. Sometimes, you know what? You're having a bad day. Let's go on down to Dunkies and get a dozen. You know, yeah, we've all been there. Fuck. My day is ruined. Let's order a pizza or 10. You know, hey, I've been there. Sometimes it helps. Sometimes you're doing more harm than good. Right? You want to hit that sweet spot if, no pun intended, if you hit that spot at all. You know, and that's the thing about it, right? That's the thing about food that is so insidious, is that people make unhealthy attachments to food, and then also people think, well, you need food to live. And so that's how 95% of Americans get addicted to junk food. Did you know 95% of Americans don't eat vegetables? Well, if you're not eating vegetables, what the fuck are you eating? You're eating junk food. You're eating garbage, right? And so it's because it slowly creeps in. People just think, well, I need food to live. Let's go eat some Hot Pockets. Their general dietary quality decreases over time. And again, it activates a feedback loop. Then that makes them so that they're less able to deal with stressful situations chronically. They have more stress, higher levels of cortisol, and then that feeds back into the cycle so that they get addicted to eating. It's an addiction cycle. 95% of Americans are drug addicts. Now, you go around and say that, and they're going to go like, oh, how dare you? Why? Well, most Americans think drug addicts are evil. They're scum. They deserve to be spit on. That's why you see a lot of people, they look down on homeless people because they just assume every homeless person's a drug addict and every drug addict deserves their life. Because the American society teaches people if you can't control yourself, it's a you issue. Meanwhile, by the way, 95% of Americans are addicted to junk food, so it's a little weird when you think about it. Professor Herbert Herzog, excellent name by the way, is a visiting scientist at the Garvan Institute's Eating Disorders Lab, and the study's senior author. He explains that in stressful situations, healthy food simply does not deliver the same reward boost that chips and lollies do. Well, because junk food is high in sugar, high in fat, and it's easy to digest, so increasing your reward feeling might help you to cope with stress better. Clinical psychologist Louise Adams from Untrapped Academy says seeking food that gives us pleasure in tricky times makes a lot of sense. Growing up in the diet culture prevalent in Australia, a lot of us feel guilty about almost everything we are eating and always trying to eat the right way. Now, I don't know about Australia. I live in America, but once again, we have an industry where all the food in America is poisoned. Right? And so we have these counter industries, the diet industry, which are mostly filled, again, with scam artists. In the same way that almost every industry that's not regulated is going to be filled with scam artists, right? Look at the self-help industry. Scam artists abound. Look at almost, all kinds of like financial literacy. Scam artists abound. There's scam artists all over the fucking place, right? And in that case, there's dietary scam artists. So people get caught in these cycles of feeling depressed about everything that they're eating because they know it's bad, and then they'll try to counteract it by going on like a 2-week cleanse where they do some diet that doesn't fucking work. Like they teach you about my mom was big on like the no fat. You ever see this? They actually taught Americans a poisonous diet, high sugar, low fat. That's the exact opposite of how the human body functions. You want high fat, low sugar, right? But they taught Americans for years that high sugar, low fat was healthy because we use the same word, fat, for two different things. We use that word for crucial nutrients, and we also use that word for excess body flaps that we don't particularly are fond of, right? So because of that, right, we use fat for two different words, two different meanings, but because Americans are stupid and they think fat's fat, we had decades of medical disinformation where they taught you low fat, high sugar is the way to go, right? And so again, we see this the dietary industry is just full of a bunch of scam artists. So people get caught in these pulls and pushes, right? Their normal diets are all poison, and then they switch to these quote unquote crash diets or whatever the fuck, where they're also getting poisoned in a different direction, and they're just constantly, nothing's ever actually working out. And we also live in a society that's extremely stressful. Again, we all got these cell phones and we're all like constantly, how many arguments are you involved in right now? Like if you go on Facebook, if you go on Twitter, Discord, whatever, your texts, your group chats, whatever, how many arguments are you currently involved in right now? Is it a family argument? You haven't seen them in a while, a friend you haven't talked to, and how many, just think about it, how many loops do you have actively going? We all carry these arguments with us all the time, And if we're not actively arguing, every time we look at it, we might see other people arguing with each other, and that causes satellite stress, right? So again, and it's also you know, if you don't go to work, what happens? You lose your job. If you lose your job, what happens? You go homeless, right? So with the threat of homelessness at us all the time, like, yeah, we're pretty fucking stressed. Meanwhile, poison is cheaper than ever. Drugs are cheaper than ever in the form of French fries, fast food, ice cream, etc. It's all drugs. There's no difference between cocaine and McDonald's. It's the same fucking shit. It's a drug. You know, you can consent to doing a drug, that's fine. But if you pretend that one of them isn't a drug and one of them is, you know, the only drugs that are not drugs are the drugs that I take. You know, alcohol, not a drug. Weed, not a drug. French fries, not a drug. Right? But why? Because I said so. Because I said everything else, that's a drug. But my favorite things, they're not drugs. Look at me, I'm an American. Professor Herzog explains that our brain naturally regulates how much sugar and fatty foods we consume. Quote, normally we have processes in place when you eat too much unhealthy foods and high in sugar. The brain actually has mechanisms in place to say, okay, well, it's enough now. This is what's called the anti-reward system, or scientifically speaking, an area of the brain called the lateral habenula. So the brain tries to take your pleasure out of eating these kinds of foods, but they discovered when the mice were stressed by placing them in pairs and putting ice cold water in their cage for an hour, what the fuck? The natural off switch did not activate. What does this mean for human health? Scientists are concerned that chronic stress will lead to eating increases amounts of comfort food and gaining weight. So it's also, I just want to say, stress itself, chronic stress itself, even if you don't have a disorder when it comes to eating, aka a drug addiction, which again, I'm not saying that to stigmatize. I'm saying that in an effort to destigmatize other drug habits, right? But like, chronic stress is a problem, with or without a developed drug addiction as a result of it. Now, if you develop a drug addiction as a result of chronic stress, you're getting fucked in two different directions, right? This is a classic spit roast situation, right? But chronic stress, which almost everyone has, it's almost impossible to escape chronic stress. That's also fucking you up. And what do you do about that? Like, it might be easy to recognize, oh, I've chronically stressed, so, and I know that that makes me more susceptible to eating junk food, so let me try my best to not buy junk food so it's not in the house or whatever, and maybe delete my junk food delivery apps or whatever, right? But that doesn't change the fact that you're chronically fucking stressed. You know what I mean? Like, how do we fix that? I don't know. No one knows, right? But anyway, there's no need to feel guilty about a perfectly human response. They're just giving you the cope. You know, yeah, you fucked up. It's all good. Don't feel guilty about it. I don't know. What does that do? I mean, I should feel guilty, because then that's going to, if I'm guilty, that's going to make me want to motivate me to do something different in the future. Oh shit, I'm guilty. Fuck. It's a lesson learned, you know, but hey, don't feel guilty. Just keep eating the donuts. But anyway, again, we have two major issues here. Drug addiction that 95% of Americans have. They're addicted to drugs in the form of sugar, processed food, that's a drug, and they're addicted to it, 95% of Americans. And also stress addiction. And it's also, they don't explain this in this article, but when I say stress addiction, is when you are chronically stressed, right? What happens is the way your nervous system adapts to that environment is by making stressors, right, feel less stressful, right? And so people, they become what, you know, it's referred to as addicted to stress, right? Their body trains them to hit like a repetitive cycle. When you see a stressful thing, you react accordingly, you get stressed, and then you de-stress, right? So the act of de-stressing is part of the stress addiction, because you can't de-stress without stressing. So a lot of people, right, it's the feedback cycle. They're addicted to the junk food, right? And so what that means is subconsciously, they're going to get more triggered at work, right? Subconsciously, you know, people aren't going out there saying, I'm going to go out of my way to get triggered so that I get stressed, and then I fucking de-stress and it's going to feel good. That's not what people are thinking. It's all subconscious, right? Their behavior is going to be slightly different. They're going to be more susceptible to reacting that way. And then they get home and they crack open their six-pack or whatever it is, their Ben and Jerry's, whatever it is that they're using to treat their stress addiction. And then what do they do the next day? They do it all over again. So, again, and then as it keeps going, your body is trained in the repetition cycle. Your body doesn't know what the fuck's going on. Your body thinks, well, if this is how life has to be, I guess it's how life has to be. So you get stuck. And then, boom, you wake up, you're 73 years old, you're retired, you got no friends, you got no hobbies, you got no family. What do? Well, fuck. Let's go to the liquor store and get drunk. Anyway. That's all I got. Oh. Billionaires. I have a problem with the idea that because someone has a lot of money that oftentimes they scammed people out of, that for whatever reason our society thinks, you know what, let's pay attention to what we have or to what they have to say, right? And so often what this leads to is billionaires going into the news and yelling at each other, and it's news. This is news. Like, I read this in the news section on a news website, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what did I read? Well, here's a headline for the ages. Mark Cuban, billionaire, attacks Joe Rogan, billionaire. I think Joe Rogan's a billionaire. If not, he's almost there. He's making hundreds of millions of dollars a year. He's almost there. And Elon Musk, billionaire. And vaccines brawl on Twitter. Way to talk in generalities, Joe. Why is this on the news? Why are people talking about it? I don't know. They're billionaires. And when a billionaire shits, it's a news-worthy event, right? Like, what the fuck? But hey, whatever. You know what? I know it's a problem. I'm jumping in. And then we have this fucking photo of Mark Cuban with his, like, sports team that he bought out or whatever looking epic. Like, look at me. I'm wearing this Dallas shirt. I don't even know what Dallas is. Like, Dallas what? I don't know. I guess the picture would tell you, but I don't know what the fuck. Like, look at me. I'm a billionaire, bro. I'm wearing a t-shirt, man. Look at me, bro. Right? But again, so what are we talking about here? We're talking about vaccines. Now, again, in a country where 84% of Americans are anti-vaxxers. If that number seems surprising to you, you probably got lied to at some point in your life. Look it up. 84% of Americans have refused the latest round of COVID-19 vaccines. Free. Effective. They work. They're safe. There's no real side effects that are anything other than temporary. Free, safe, effective vaccines. 84% of the country refuse them. So as far as I'm aware, the Joe Rogans of the world, they won that battle. The American zombies, the sheep, the herd, if you will, they're marching in lockstep. I heard some bald freak on a podcast talk about something. It must be true. And then Mark Cuban is involved, I guess. Why not? Anyway, again, this is cringe. Mark Cuban, Shark Tank star, billionaire, entrepreneur, and owner of both the Dallas Mavericks and Cost Plus Drugs. Who cares? Waded into a chaotic Twitter brawl about, like, again, this is news. Like, I just want everyone to understand this is in the news section of a news website. I mean, okay, just to be clear, this is on Fortune. So, I don't know, is Fortune really a news website? But they claim to be, like, they're telling us that they're a news website, right? So, again, okay. Blah, 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 including Tesla CEO, blah, blah, blah. By the way, Elon has not been the world's richest man for a while. So, like, this idea that he's still the richest man after losing, like, $100 billion in this Twitter deal and all this fucking shit, Tesla's fucking stock crash. He is not the richest man in the world anymore. Please stop saying that. It's centered around Spotify podcaster Joe Rogan challenging a medical expert, Dr. Peter Hotez, Dean of the National School of Tropical Medicine and Professor of Pediatrics and Molecular Virology and Microbiology at Baylor College of Medicine, to enter a debate about vaccines on a show that came in response to Hotez sharing a Vice article from Friday entitled, "Spotify has stopped even sort of trying to stem Joe Rogan's vaccine misinformation." I would say that that is an inaccurate headline. It is disinformation. Joe Rogan knows he's lying. He knows he's making shit up, and he's doing it anyway for a political purpose. That's my opinion. Because how many times have we done this song and dance where he said some blatant lie about vaccines, he gets corrected, and he goes, "Oh, my bad, guys." How many times? What is this, 28th time? Like, now he's just embracing it at this point, but... The Vice article came after a Rogan episode the day prior featuring Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a long-shot Democratic blah, blah, blah. Despite his political party, U.S. conservatives had taken a shine to Kennedy, who wrote a 21 book entitled The Real Anthony Fauci, Bill Gates, Big Pharma. Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. These guys are obsessed with Anthony Fauci. It's crazy. I mean, I think Fauci is a fucking cocksucker piece of shit. I hate the guy. I mean, I personally think he's evil. But... man, oh man, these guys are obsessed with that motherfucker. I'm more concerned with like Walensky than I am with Fauci any day of the week. But Rogan tweeted on Saturday evening, Peter, if you want to claim what RFK Jr. is saying is misinformation, I am offering you $100,000 to the charity of your choice if you're willing to debate him on my show with no time limit. You ever see this fucking shit that billionaires do? I will donate to charity if you do this fucked up shit for me. Like putting the onus on you. Like, you ever see, like, you see this a lot, like, yeah, if you do some stupid-ass, fucked-up shit, I'm gonna give money to poor kids. What do you want to do? Not do the fucked-up shit? You don't want the poor kids to get money? Like, what? Like, first of all, like, you're the one bringing up the fucking charity, you know what I mean? Like, okay, so if I decline your stupid offer, like, now you're gonna not donate to charity and that's my fault? You know what I mean? Like, you ever, like, you see this a lot with rich people. They, like, yeah, see? You don't want to have the kids starve, do you? Like, they do this fucking thing where they dangle the fucking money above the fuck, you know? It's fucking crazy. But anyway. Apparently the doctor responded with, Joe, you have my cell, my email, I'm always willing to speak with you. Replied, Hotez, who wrote the 2018 book, Vaccines Did Not Cause Rachel's Autism. Twitter owner Musk then retweeted, if he's afraid of a public debate because he's afraid of public debate because he knows he's wrong. You ever notice, by the way, that these guys will never talk about specifics? It's always, this guy is wrong. They're bad. They're wrong. What are they wrong about? They're wrong. It's always they, vague. Who's they? We don't know. Sometimes it's Fauci. Sometimes we don't fucking know. And wrong. What is wrong? What were they wrong on? What did they say that was wrong? What was right even? Doesn't matter. All we know is that somebody, was wrong in some way. That's all we really care about when you're a right-winger. That's all you need. Hedge fund billionaire. I missed Hotez replied, seriously, Elon, this is monstrous. 200,000 Americans needlessly perished, including 40,000 Texans, our neighbors, because they were victims of anti-vaccine disinformation. I don't know why you would specify 200K when we're talking about 84% of the country is ignoring the vaccines and hundreds of thousands of people are dying every year after they started ignoring the vaccines. To me, that's more of an alarm bell. 84% of Americans, not just conservatives, not just people in Texas. Fuck Texas. We're talking about Democrats, Joe Biden voters, vote blue no matter who, feminists, you know, the Hillary Clinton super fans. We're talking about the communists. We're talking about Antifa. 84% of Americans, almost everyone, has ignored and refused the latest round of vaccines. Hundreds of thousands of people have died since the latest round of vaccine. That 84% of the country have ignored. So, again, this is the other thing, is that even a lot of the medical community is covering up the pandemic. They're covering up and lying about it. So they're arguing from a place of weakness here when they can just, you know, liberate themselves and say, yeah, the U.S. government is engaging in a genocide, a mandatory medical experiment where they are forcing you to get sick with a disease that we don't know anything about, and the government is funding disinformation actors to make you afraid of all sorts of medicine so that in the future, when there's more pandemics, you'll have been trained to be afraid of medicine so that you die much more quickly, like a good little drone, like a good little sheep. That's what I would say. That's what I believe. I believe the government is doing all of this intentionally. Explain how they could do this on accident. I'll take that. But let's keep going. Hedge fund billionaire Big Bill Ackman unexpectedly joined in, tweeting, I will add $150 to Joe Rogan's wager. Like, again, look at all these billionaires. We're going to donate to kids' I'm just assuming it's kids. But we're going to donate to charity if you, like, are, like, we'll give not $250,000 to you. Right? But that's the other thing about this one that fucks with me. Like, if you want to give me $250,000 to go on your show and embarrass myself for 2 hours, I'm in. But that's the thing, is you're not going to get paid. They're going to dangle this money for charity that doesn't affect either of you, so force you to feel compelled to get nothing, to gain nothing, Otherwise, they're going to blame you for kids going starving. Like, this is some crazy ass. And this is why I don't believe that we should have billionaires. Because billionaires, they play these fucked up psychological torture events. Shit's crazy, man. But anyway, so it's just a bunch of billionaires fighting. Like, what the fuck are these? And this is news, apparently. This is news. We just have to deal with this fucking shit being in the news. But Mark Cuban apparently says that Elon Musk and Joe Rogan are the mainstream online media, and your platforms have done everything supposedly wrong with MSM. I agree with that. So I want to say, based Mark Cuban on this one, and that's the only time they're going to get that one out of me, is that, yeah, all the problems with mainstream media, the corruption, right? And what corruption is pronged from two different things: money and friendships. That leads to corruption. So when people say mainstream media is corrupt, what are they saying? The money that they're getting is from unhelpful industries such as Raytheon, the military-industrial complex, right? The food industry. They're paying them to say certain things. But also, look at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, right? The so-called press, the free press, is getting, they're having fun with politicians. They're signing up and dressing up in tuxedos and drinking fancy $5,000 cocktails with the politicians they're supposed to be rough on. So again, the two mechanisms for corruption, money and friendship, are both present in these so-called anti-mainstream media industries. Now again, 10 years ago, YouTube just got bought by Google, right? I think, what was that, like 2009, 2010? So, the money hadn't yet corrupted everyone online, right? It was kind of still really even unheard of to make money full time on the internet, being like an artist or a content creator. Like, that was not really a thing 15 years ago, right? But now we have an entire side industry, right, where there's a lot of money now, right? And also people have had enough time to build up friendships, relationships, and the same exact dynamic has set up. People that hated the mainstream media's blatant corruption 10 years ago created their own simultaneously corrupted network, and they just exist in different spaces. So you have mainstream media in the form of CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, whatever the fuck, right? And then you have the sub-mainstream media, which is like Joe Rogan, Elon Musk, all these kind of people. They both have the same problems. They're both corrupted by money, right? They're both funded by billionaires, and they both have way too many kind connections with one another that prevents them from having honest, rigorous debate. The same problems. And you see this in all forms of the media. You see this in every political section. Like, look at left-wing politics, right? Look at what the Young Turks has been doing, for example, right? They have way too many kind friendships with transphobic people, racist people that they bring on their show constantly to do interviews, fawning over them. Even though they hate transgender people, they hate black people, they hate immigrants, they'll still bring them on their show to give great interviews because they've been friends for too long. Oh, we've known each other for 15 years. How could I hold you accountable for the fucked up shit you say, right? And then also, again, look at the money, right? Look at where the money that they source is from. So it doesn't the amount of zeros on your bank account is not really the necessary factor. It's not like you hit a certain amount of zeros on your bank account and then magically you become corrupt, right? That's not what happens. It's a slow trickle of corrupting money. And again, most people, they don't like anything more than like a couple $100,000 is, for most people, kind of just like, what's the difference between $1 billion and $1 million? That's why people don't really understand why billionaires are so powerful. Like, they don't really understand the difference between such big numbers, right? And so, again, it takes, for a billionaire, a small amount of money to corrupt somebody, right? And again, friendships, when you have a friend, it's harder to call them out on their bullshit. And that's the problem with modern day so-called alternative media, is that it now has all the same issues of mainstream media, except without any of the polish, right? Without any of the fun production budgets, without being on TV. Like, why would I watch the Young Turks when I could watch CNN? It's the same fucking shit, right? They're all corrupt, right? They all are afraid to hold their friends accountable, and they all just like fucking stagnate and make us dumber or don't teach us anything. Why would I watch either of those? In the same way, why would I watch Joe Rogan's show when I could watch Fox News? What niche is different? They're both corrupted by money. They're both corrupted by influence. What's the difference between Fox News and Joe Rogan? There is none. Right? So again, and now we have to, like, again, we're also inundated with, because billionaires are arguing, this is in the news now, we all have to talk about, what are the billionaires saying? The billionaires are mad at each other, guys, the billionaires. Like, come on now. Come the fuck on. But anyway, that's a good point from Mark Cuban, I will say. It is rare for a billionaire to make a good point. And, yeah, Joe Rogan has all the same problems as CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, the White House, the Senate, right? The White House Correspondents' Dinner, all of these people, you know, all the people that they claim to hate. Because really, that's what the grievance is. This is a grievance industrial complex. Is people like Joe Rogan and Elon Musk and Donald Trump, they feel like they were left out. Like 10 years ago. I mean, that's why Trump ran for president, for Christ's sake. They feel that they got left out. That there was some runaway train that they either weren't invited to or were kicked out of. Like sometimes, you know, they were on the train, like Donald Trump was on the train, and then he got kicked out. Right? And so a lot of this grievance industrial complex, like alternative mainstream media bullshit, is just people trying to get revenge on their enemies. Right? It's not about ethics. It's not about morality. It's not about, I am fundamentally, philosophically against corruption. They don't give a shit about any of that. Right? It's all just a grievance. I got kicked out of this club 10 years ago. I'm going to make my own club. That's all it is, man. That's all it fucking is. That's literally all it is. They're just as corrupt. They're just as dumb. It's just a different flavor. So anyway, there you go. There's your billionaires yelling at each other segment for today. I wonder what our billionaires yelling at each other segment for tomorrow will look like. I'm not sure, but I guess ask me tomorrow. Anyway, that's all my news stories for today. That's all I got. Oh, Jesus. I got the coffee burps, hiccups, whatever you want to call them. I forgot to take my fucking meds this morning. I'm going to fucking die. My capillaries are going to fucking burst any minute now. I'm back in. But that's my show. For today. That's all I got. All I got. Yeah, I don't want to harp on, you know, on other shows too much, but I also know I can use that because I know most of my audience watches a lot of the same people in the same network. And to be honest with you, like, I am trending in a direction that is leaving that kind of network behind. So I will often cite those kinds of people as you know, as a way to get you more on my side of the thought aisle, you know. But yeah, one thing that I think is a huge problem is that poor people, I think as a matter of principle, more people are poor, and poor people are more likely to be easily corrupted, right? And so when you see people that advocate for issues for the poor, right, probably they were poor at some point in their lives, typically in childhood, and then they are angry about that, but because they were poor, they also know the value of a dollar, because poor people know the value of a dollar way more than anyone else, right? And so poor people are way easily more, well, it's also, again, most people are dumb, right? We live in a world where 90% of people minimum are just dumb as rocks. They're just fucking stupid, right? And that, you know, that 90%, it crosses through all the different demographics. Conservatives, dumb as hell. Liberals, dumb as hell. Leftists, dumb as hell. Doesn't matter your political beliefs. It doesn't matter what color shirt you're wearing. You're probably a dumbass, right? There's a lot of dumb gay people. There's a lot of dumb trans people. There's a lot of dumb cis people. There's a lot of dumb straight people. They're all dumb. Everyone's dumb. We live in a dumb fuck world full of dumbass motherfuckers, right? And so most people are dumb. And when most people have the option of selling out, again, even if they are ostensibly, principally against selling out, they'll still do it anyway, and they'll come up. This is the other thing too, is there have been studies that have found that people with a higher IQ. Now, again, I'm skeptical of what IQ even is, but they found that people with a higher IQ are not necessarily less susceptible to corruption, but they have better coping mechanisms. That's why you see like people like Elon Musk, who I would imagine Elon Musk actually believes that what he is doing, like he has self-described himself as like a long-term humanist or something. Like he's thinking about the human species in the thousands of years terminology, and so that's okay. It's okay to kill thousands of people with your policies. It's okay to be a racist scumbag because you're thinking about such a grandiose timeline. I can imagine that Elon Musk actually believes that. And again, this is why there really is no such thing as general intelligence, because if you do have what people are, they assume IQ is general intelligence. Those are not the same thing. But if you have a higher IQ, you're going through more steps in the coping mechanism for you doing fucked up shit, right? So it doesn't matter your intelligence on whether or not you do moral or good. You can be a dumb motherfucker and still do something that's great with your life. You can be a smart motherfucker and still do the shit that's evil with your life, right? The amount of just steps you have to go through in your own head to cope with it is, that changes. But again, we live in a world where most people are fucking stupid. Most people want money. They're obsessed with money, right? And so the first time that they get money, they think, oh, what I'm doing must be working. And then they never deviate. That's why you see people get a job and they just have that one single job for most of their lives. You ever meet these people that I worked here for 40 years, 50 years, and then I retired. I worked in this one spot, this one place, this one store, and I did this one thing for 50 years. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, talk about corruption. I mean, like, this is just on the small scale. You know what I mean? Like, we're talking about, like, society interpersonally, right? That's corruption. Working a job you hate for 50 years just because it pays well, that's corruption. That's corruption. You are corrupted. Like, now you might not feel corrupted. You might think, you might have your own, well, I got to do this to feed my family. That's fucking corruption. Okay? That is corruption. You got corrupted into doing shit for people you don't like, that you don't like to do the shit you like. You don't like who you're working for. You got convinced to work there for 50 years because the money was good. Yeah, that's fucking corruption. I would rather be poor and happy than fucking well off and miserable any day of the week. That's just my opinion. And so again, but you see a lot of people that they work these jobs that they don't like, and that's corruption on a small scale. So anyway, with all that being said, that's my show for today. I was a little high this morning, and I'm not going to lie to you. I'm still really high. I got a little fucked up yesterday. And so I hope my show was okay. I may have been a little rambly. But I try my best. But, yeah, I mean, that's it. That's the show. I want to remind everyone that I want to get monetized on my other YouTube channel. I'm getting closer and closer there. I need 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours. So, if anyone wants to turn on a playlist on this channel, my Doom channel, turn on a playlist and watch a couple runs, give me some watch time, give me some subscriptions. It's free. But anyway, there you go. That's it. That's all. I don't know how to turn this off, so I'm gonna press this button.